Right. Welcome back to the diary room, Sammy, for a final 10. How's the game treating you?
Uh, it's going. Kind of depends on the day, I think. I think that things are going all right for the most part, with like the same exception we've had throughout the game. But otherwise, like things have been going good. It's starting to sound like people might actually do not the literal most boring possible noms that they could actually make every week. So like that'll be good if people start playing the game. But we'll see what happens there. But for the most part, I think it's treating me okay.
All right, period. Um, so we start out the cycle. Well, first of all, um, with MJ walking and whatnot, how do you feel that affected your kind of game plan moving forward?
I feel like it did in a very bad way. Like I was saying at the time, I was like, if either Livy or MJ stayed, like I preferred MJ staying anyway because like I did trust MJ more. But it's like either MJ or Livy staying would have been interchangeable for my game. It was someone who had made it clear who they were against, who would be an easy target above the people who I wanted to stay a little bit more, and would have been people who would have actually done something if they won. And I would have been perfectly okay with losing either of them. The fact that I lost both because of the quit circumstances was pretty frustrating, truthfully. But like it happens because like obviously like there's stuff outside the game and stuff like that. But just strictly talking on a game level, it definitely does affect things there.
Sounds good. Um, so going into the first HOH, plagiarism, Ryan wins. The head of household, how are you feeling with his win?
I feel like if he wanted to torture himself with that HOH, better him than other people. But no, see, I'm a little bit torn, truthfully, because like in my confessional, obviously I've been saying about how like I'm really happy about it. I trust Ryan, and I still do trust Ryan. I still have him very high on the rankings. I feel like I feel like this HOH has tied Ryan a lot to the people who seem to have more power, and not in a good way. I feel like there is a very good chance that if people who are not in with that group, like the people who seem to be like their names come up a lot, I feel like let's say if Crow wins, for instance, I feel like before it would have been like, okay, well, nothing's going to happen here involving Ryan, but now it's like, okay, well, I don't know that I could talk him out of putting up Ryan. I feel like it's kind of like that, where it's like it feels like this put Ryan on a separate side with most of the other people who I'm close with, which is not great long term, truthfully. So, like in terms of like how I felt with the HOH, like I felt like yeah, I was safe. I had absolutely no fear about going up, but like I especially given that if I remember right with it, Crow was the person who came in second. I would have been a lot happier if Ryan would have just lost the competition, let Crow, who was already in the spotlight, win it and gone after someone else. But I mean, I guess he couldn't have known who else would have won. But still, like I don't know. I'm happy in the short term, but I'm unhappy in the long term. Is basically where I'm at.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, Crow and Val do end up being the nominations. So it seems you weren't too happy with that.
No, not really. I mean, kind of a couple of factors. Like I don't know. It feels like I get that he hasn't really talked to them, and like that's one thing. But like based on what he said with it, like I feel like he must have some sort of connections with people he doesn't want to put up. But I feel like I even said to him, I'm like, if Crow and Val leave, you are not very high on the chopping block for people. Like you are there right now because there are people who are easier options. But like I feel like I don't know. I feel like he should have done more. But it's also just like I don't know. Like maybe it's because of the fact that this is the exact two people that in my HOH the whole house was like, "Oh, these are the easy noms. You should put them up. We can gun for them and stuff like that." And they only didn't go up last week because the two people who were more of easy noms one lost their immunity and one there wasn't a GPA twist for them to not pitch her because of. So I mean, so it was like I I don't know. It feels like he literally picked the safest option, but I feel like with the safest option, he picked people who wouldn't have put him up and basically put like I don't know. It could end up working out. It could end up being that like he puts himself into a position where like if people do start taking shots right now and they take bigger shots, and if he gets lucky with who wins this HOH, then sure he gets he can get off scot free, but I feel like he puts himself at unnecessary risk with this just to appease the house when I don't I don't really think that's to his benefit. And I mean, on a personal level, like I like both the nominees. I'm not happy to vote out either of them. I mean, obviously Crow is like has been one of my like top people on my list the whole time, so I'd be less happy if he was the one going, but even still, like, I don't know why we vote out Val, who has pretty clear targets that she's against, which don't include him. I don't know. I'm not a fan though. No.
Okay, sounds good. So with the close quarters veto, so you guys were doing a lot of strategizing with the competition. How did it kind of play out from your perspective?
Oh God. So we played a competition, and I'm like, okay, this comp, kind of like what happened with the conversation, and very nice tea talk afterwards and no fighting at all. There was like we ended up with the fact that like I was like, okay, I don't want to win this competition, obviously, but maybe if I can subtly try and give some points to Aiden, and Aiden can win. Aiden's already told me he's thinking of using the veto, so if I can give the comp to Aiden, that would be great. But I obviously can't do it directly. So I'm like, I'm gonna try and set him up subtly through it, and we'll just see what happens. And then I try and give him a point, and he just ignores it. So I'm like, okay, well, sure, whatever. Well, we'll try this again later. We never got the chance to try this again later, really, because we had the fun of Shinx throwing the competition to Ryan very, very, very blatantly. Like there was no subtlety there. To the point where it's called out, he's just like, yeah, I want the noms to be kept the same, which I mean, I get it, but like, I didn't expect it to be that blatant. And that's all well and good. I mean, again, Ryan winning, keeping the noms the same, like, it's a better outcome than me winning. But then, because I happen to be the person ahead of Crow, Crow starts trying to throw the competition to me. And it's like, that's nice and all. But now I'm between a rock and a hard place, because if I win the veto, I have to burn one of my two highest people in the house, and I need to either not save Crow, who will stay but will be mad at me, or I have to save Crow. Val will still go home. I will lose Ryan, and I'll probably go up with Crow the next week, which I am still a little afraid of happening because, oh, you guys worked together on the comp. So like we'll see what happens there. But I I don't know. I feel like it puts in a position where like we basically just threw kind of to each other. I gave a few points ahead to Aiden, including 1 point where there was 2 points on the table, which I just kind of pretended that I didn't see because like I mean again, it would have been suicide for me to win it. And then like at the end I could have tried to set things up differently, but I had done a move which was like it basically put in a position where like it gave Aiden a point, but it put it where like there was really only like two options of where he could have gone on the board, both of which would give points to Val, but wouldn't give quite enough points. And I only needed Ryan to get a couple more points, and I wouldn't win at that point. So I kind of just had to go for it. And it was like, if this isn't taken and I get the veto, I'd be getting the veto anyway at this point. So basically, it was just everyone throwing the comp to somebody and just seeing what happened. And honestly, like as much as it would have been as much as like in a like an ideal world, if I could have saved Crow with it, if I could have won and saved Crow without any backlash, I would have gladly went for it. But there's no way I could have had him blatantly throw a veto to me, win, take him off the block, and not piss off half the house.
Sounds good. So yeah, so Ryan was the veto, fourth little sweep week, period. and doesn't use it. So, kind of with the voting, how are you looking at with who you want to see leave?
I mean, with the vote, I don't know, I think it's a pretty easy vote from the sounds of things. Like, I trust Crow more than Val, and Val did make a pitch to me, basically along the lines of that she thought that already had Michael's vote, and that she could pull in she can pull me in, then she'd have Blaze, and then she'd be able to pull in one of Aiden or Jordan, and then do it. But there was problems there. Like, her pitch was basically like, "Oh well, if we save Val, then it spites Ryan," and I'm like, okay, but why? Like, I pretty much told her, I was like, I need you to give me a better reason, pretty much, because if I put myself on his shit list, like, it's kind of like what I said with interchangeability before. Crow and Val, I like them both being in the game. They were both pretty high up on my list pretty consistently, except for like Crow has been for longer and has been higher up. But in terms of their position in the game, they're both people who are going to be easy pawns, going to go up against probably whoever, and a good chance that if someone goes for an easy week, they're going to be out the door. They're both people who have shown that they can do good at competitions, and they're both people who are pretty much certainly not going to just take an easy move if they win the veto. I'm sorry, an HOH. So my problem at that point becomes, if the two of them are interchangeable and one of them is someone who the house wants me to vote to save, and it's the person who I'm closer with, it's kind of an easy decision, as sad as it is. Um, Especially because even with the people from Val's plan, like, she told me about Blaze being on board, but Blaze had told me that Blaze was very much not on board with this idea. And Michael kind of admitted, he's like, yeah, I probably made things look a little bit too sure. So I'm like, all right, well, I will shoot the plan down instead. But like, even if she thought she had the three and she tried to go to the people about it, her others were Jordan and Aiden. One of which is, I think from how Crow has talked, I think that his closest alliance is the me and Jordan one. So I don't know why Jordan would randomly flip the vote. And Aiden wanted to be close with Crow, and we just made an alliance of me, Crow, Aiden. So I don't know why Aiden would flip either. So like, I don't know. I feel like Val would have more of a chance of trying to flip like Pinks, Mira, that whole group, but like, at that point, she couldn't really flip me or any of the other two she needs, because I mean, I don't think she's gonna be able, like, I don't think she's gonna be able to go up to me and be like, "Hey, I've got a great plan. Why don't I leave you on the outs, stay in the game, and have power, and we can vote out Crow?" And it's like, oh, that'd be a great plan. So this is really the only thing that Val could have tried to do, but like, especially this close to deadline, like, I think it's pretty clear that this is not something that's gonna pan out.
Right, fair enough. So, looking into the next cycle, kind of what do you feel like or what you want to see happen?
Uh, I know what I'd like to see not happen, but unfortunately, I don't know what's going to happen. I would like to see me get to play in the HOH, but I have reason to believe that that is not something that I will be able to do. So honestly, best case scenario, if anyone except for Mira wins the HOH, because I mean, if she's this gung ho on even now, like, not talking and putting me out and blocking me from HOH, even when her allies really try and get her to block Crow, I think it's a pretty easy choice for me to, not want her to win, because I can promise I could put money on the table right now that I'm going on the block if she is, and I'm going to be the target. So anyone else would probably be fine. I would like it to be someone like, for instance, if someone like Crow could win, that would be really good. Or honestly, if Blaze is at all truthful with the things he's been saying, with wanting to take some sort of shot, that would be optimal. Basically, I just want someone to win who's going to actually do something and not just be like, let's try and pick off more people who are stragglers, or let's try and pick off more people who are not like the names that come up so often and everything like that, because we're coming to the point where if enough of those people leave, and if the boring option keeps happening every week, at some point I'm going to be the more boring option to put on the block than other people. And I don't feel like that's going to pan out for me long term. I think I'm trying to like get people to do things, but like I need people to do things and not just do the most boring thing possible, or else I'm not going to have a lot of room to stand. So I hope that someone wins who will actually do something. At this point, if I can get someone who is not going to put me or Crow or Michael on the block, I'm gonna be I would be okay with it no matter who it is. Like I think I think that those would be bad options. Like, I don't think Ryan should go up either. So, like, I might have said him out wrong. But yeah, basically, like, if the people there don't go out on the block, that would be great. I would be happy with any HOH that does that. But again, failing that, I would like me to not go on the block. And unless I go up next to Crow, I feel like the only person who would put me up is one out of like 8 options. So, I'm sorry, 1 out of 7 because they're going HOH and play. But same difference.
Okay, very interesting. Um, and kind of, at this stage in the game, I like to kind of start asking, like, what are you, have you made any plans regarding like potential end game paths? Like, what does that look like for you right now?
Right now, I think that the closest thing that I have to it with an end game path is like kind of like what I was saying with like I need people to do things with it. I'm trying to get myself close enough with different people involved that like first off, like if I'm going to get to the end and if I'm not going to be a target, Mira needs to leave sooner rather than later. She's too connected with it with people and is basically a ticking time bomb for my game where one of us is going to have to take out the other eventually. So like that would be something I want to happen before we get to an end game. But just in general, like I feel like my closest thing is that I want to try and get it set like the bigger players kind of take shots at each other. And I would love to go to the end with like someone who I can like position like what have I done and how have I played against them. So for instance, we've got people like let's say Shinx for instance. There's no way I want to go to the end of Shinx. Like that's part of why he's been low on my trust ranking because it's like it's also a who would I like to go far in the game with ranking. And Shinx, if I go to the end with Shinx, I'm going to lose the game. And my trust rank kind of goes like honestly, it can pretty much be seen as like an order with it, like for the top people. Like I would like to, in an ideal world, I would like to go to the end with Crow or Michael. I feel like they have their connections, obviously. I feel like they've done a bit, but I feel like they'd be pretty easy to argue stuff against. Same with like Ryan would be a bit harder, but I feel like it would at least be doable. And like, I don't know, there's other people where it's like I want to get more of a feel of like what they're actually doing in the game. Like I feel like for instance, if I were to like Aiden is someone who I'm also trying to be close with, where I'm like I've talked a lot with Aiden. I trust Aiden, but I also think that he has connections. But I also don't really get the vibe that he's done enough of like on his own to really make it like a factor to need to worry about. So basically it's like any of like that half of the house I would be quite happy to go with. Like the others like the Mira, Shinx, Blaze, and Jordan, I think that they are all like would be very hard to play against and are people who like ideally if I can get those out before if I can get those 4 out before the end, I'm okay with my shot. I'm at the very least okay with my chances against any of the other 4.
All right. Well, sounds good. Very informative as always, Sammy.